Hey, what's happening everybody? This is Haydn Adams with A Designer Who Codes. In our previous two videos in this playlist or this set of videos, I was focusing on React Bootstrap Cards, and more specifically in the last video, focusing on how to make our images perfectly sized using the Gatsby image parameter and using GraphQL. Well, if we look at our code from our previous project, we duplicated our efforts by saying Golden Gate Bridge and Muir Woods. Whenever I write things in repetition, I think about how can I make this just a little bit easier? And the answer is using Markdown files to make cards look impeccable. And with that, let's get started. All right, welcome back. So in our previous video, I will put a link to it both in the description and also in this video as well, but I focused on cards using React Bootstrap. And in the React Bootstrap, I wanted to make sure these two pictures that were by default different sizes appear the same on the screen. And what we did was we utilized inside of Gatsby image the fluid, and we set a max height to 300 and a max width of 600, making the ratio at 50% or 0.5, saying this width is twice as long as this height. So no matter what size the picture is, it's going to conform, and we use the fit cover to make sure it fits at 100%, and the crop focus was center. But as you can see here, this is 2, but if I had 4, 5, 6, 7 pictures and text, this could get pretty daunting as you can see how much code is going in. What I'd love to do is transform this data into Markdown files. And if you're new to Markdown files, don't worry. They're actually pretty simple to use, even though they sound somewhat of a strange foreign land because we're used to HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. I will say, strap on your seatbelts because this is not going to be done in 2 minutes. But once you do it once, it's so much easier to duplicate again, harnessing the power of Markdown files and GraphQL. The first step we have to do is declare and tell in the Gatsby config where our Markdown files are going to go. Now I am using the Gatsby Starter default that already has a great plugin already built in. If I head over to the Gatsby config and bring it into VS Studio Code, the world's best coding tool editor, which is made by Microsoft, which always surprises me when I say that. But I'm making sure that I have the Gatsby Transformer Remark plugin installed. If you're using a different plugin that doesn't have it, be sure to install this. You can simply type in npm install or yarn add and say Gatsby Transformer Remark, and you're off to the races. What I also want to do is I want to make sure the file system recognizes a new folder. So what I'm going to do is, inside the root level of Gatsby, I'm going to create a folder that says content. And in here is where my Markdown files are going to live and breathe. So what I'm going to do is just like we have this directory name in our source folder, like we have our source folder right here, I'm simply going to say content. So down below, what I'm going to say is curly bracket, open and close, and say resolve and backtick and say Gatsby source file system, comma, and after resolve, I'm going to say options, colon, and curly brackets, and say name. I'm going to call this one Markdown, just so I know what it is, comma, and the path is going to be colon, backtick, if I hit the right, key, and say $ for string, and then curly bracket, underscore, underscore, like the top one, I'm going to say directory name, slash, content, and slash. And I also just noticed that I spelled Markdown wrong. So it's MARKDOWN. The good thing, this is not imperative on spelling right here. This is just for your own references. After that, I'm going to hit comma to close that part, hit the comma after the curly bracket, and a comma after the curly bracket. Now, if I try to restart Gatsby Develop, it's going to throw an error message at me. Why? Because I don't have a folder named content yet. So if you do try to run Gatsby Develop, I highlight the return key, there it goes. It's probably going to throw an error message. And yes, the path passed to Gatsby source file system does not exist on your file system. So as an FYI, if I try to run Gatsby Develop, this is going to fail because I have not created the folder structure yet. So let's create the folder structure. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new folder and call it content. This is where all my Markdown files are going to live. So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new file, save it, and in my folder where it says content, I'm going to call this one Golden Gate Bridge.md. The great part about working with Visual Studio Code or VS Code is it provides the right color coordination to the file. The downside is it just gives you an empty file, so you gotta know what you gotta do with it at the same time. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create front matter inside of this Markdown file. I'm gonna say 3 dashes, hit the return key twice, and put 3 more dashes in. Notice when I type 2 dashes, it kind of turned orange, but 3 indicates that this is the space in between these two that indicates front matter. What I'm going to start with is say title, and T-I-T-L-E, and I'll call this one Golden Gate Bridge. Wow, I'm typing all uppercase all of a sudden. What I'm next going to do is say image 01. I use capital I for my images just to kind of mimic the Gatsby image. It can be uppercase or lowercase. It doesn't matter. I just kind of have my own unique following system for that. So if you want to type I, go for it. I'm just used to typing capital I for Gatsby image. So image 01, I'm going to say, well, where is this picture? And I'm going to say, I don't know, but actually I do know where it is. So in this Markdown file, we have to follow the path to the picture that we want to reference. So from content, we go outside the content folder, into our source folder, and into our images folder, and eventually into the Golden Gate Bridge photo. So I'm going to say ... to go out of the content folder, then source, then images, then Golden Gate Bridge. What I will also do is add image 01 alt and give it an alt name. Now this sometimes can be the same as title, but you might want to say no people in front. Is that true? Yep, no people in there. No people in front of the Golden Gate Bridge. The rules generally with image alts are better or longer descriptions, the better, because it more describes it for more ADA requirements. So that way if someone is visually impaired, they can roll over that picture and it can auditory tell them what the picture is. If you just said bridge, it doesn't do much. At least Golden Gate Bridge does more, and no people in front of Golden Gate Bridge even describes more than that. But if it's just a generic photo, you can always copy and paste the title right into the alt. It's up to you. We're going to leave this area blank for right now down below, but we can bring in some text down the road to make this work. I'm going to save the Golden Gate Bridge Markdown, and hopefully, if I double check the location, under content, we should have Golden Gate Bridge Markdown. Now we should get, if we run Gatsby Develop again, now what's going to happen is the Gatsby config, and in that Markdown content folder, it's going to find our Markdown file. So far, those little green lights are always good to see. It's running some different static queries, generating thumbnails, all that good stuff. And hopefully, maybe we're going to get some more green lights and we're going to get our GraphQL, because I want to start there to see how things are going to work. Perfect. We're looking great. So what I want to do is I'm going to pull up GraphQL. And let me close all these pieces down, and we are empty. So what I should have in this whole directory is, you'll see it says all Markdown remark. Notice the word Markdown. So once again, this whole Markdown remark is looking for Markdown files inside of our project. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on All Markdown Remark, hit the play, and notice it drops in an edges, node, and an ID. And there's one ID. So let's take a look at this further and see what's going on. So our Markdown remark, edges, node, and notice it now says front matter right below the node. And inside the front matter, check it out. If I put these side by side, title is right here, image 01 is above it, and image 01 alt. And let's just check the title out. Cool. Golden Gate Bridge. We're looking sharp. Not image sharp, but just sharp. Sorry, bad Gatsby joke. And if we pull image 01 alt, it now pulls the same thing. Of course, we can always go back, change that, save it, play, and now no people in front of the Golden Gate Bridge. Now notice we have an arrow next to image 01. That's because Gatsby lets us use Gatsby image in Markdown files. This is like the coolest thing since sliced bread. It's pretty dang awesome. And from our last video that we followed, now we can use child image sharp and fluid. And what that's going to allow us to do is, it's going to drop these basic pieces in, which I'm going to take them out because I just need the path, not the circ set. What I'm looking for in here is original name, just to make sure I get the right file. And I got the right file, fluid original name. Now, once again, I can reset up all the parameters from my last exercise in this design. And it's pulling the right file based upon this list. So because I've kept them in my project, I haven't deleted them yet, we can go and take a look at them. So if you've watched the previous video, you'll notice that I used the max height of 300, max width of 600, crop focus center, and fit cover. And we can always bring those in again by coming up here and saying, well, max height, we will say 300. And just for a change, we'll go 100 so we can make sure we see a difference in design. And we'll say max width is 600. So once again, that's 2 of the 4. Crop focus is center. So if I come to crop focus is center, and fit is going to be cover so it fits the full size. That way, no matter how fluid we move it, it's going to hold 100% of the size of the cover. So GraphQL is looking pretty good. All Markdown remark, it's going to pull all of this data. Now what we have to do is pull all of this data into our actual index file and let the GraphQL take over. So let's move the GraphQL over to the left because we're going to use this information. Inside of my index file, I already have the Golden Gate Bridge GI and the Muir Woods GI for Gatsby image, which are great, but I can use now the Markdown file down below. So what I'm going to do is below the Muir Woods, if we count out 3 curly brackets, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, we're going to drop down and create card capital details in here. Hit the colon and space, and I could retype all this, but we actually just did it all. So I can grab all this information right here and I can paste it into card details right here. This is the great part. Because we know it works in GraphQL, we know it's pulling the pertinent information inside of our query over here in our index file. Now what I have to do is I have to bring in the Gatsby image sharp fluid where it says original name. If I save this and I save this, it will recreate the thumbnail, but by default, we won't see anything happen because we haven't applied all of these details above. So let's give this a shot, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna write some code down below just because we have this working right here, and let's bring it down below to make sure we just write the code first, and then we can do is we can add our cards and rows and columns afterwards. So what we have to do is, if you notice, there's this word called edges right down here. And edges have nodes, and each node pertains to an individual title, image, and image 01, or image alt and image 01. So the cool part about this is what we can do is we can map or produce all of these nodes. Now, I only have one, but in this case, let's see if it works. So what I'm gonna do is, let's type some code. So what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna hit the curly bracket and say data dot card, not comma, data dot card details. And I'm gonna follow this path. Notice card details edges node. So what I'm gonna do is data card details edges dot map. I wanna map my nodes out. And if I spell it right as I'm talking is one other thing. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna map all of these edges on the page. So I can put multiple, eventually, cards without having to write more than at one time at a time. From here, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put another set of curly brackets, and inside, I'm gonna say node. From here, I'm gonna go out one curly bracket and one parentheses, hit space, equals, greater than symbol, and then I'm gonna hit the open paren because it's gonna create a close paren. Now this is where all the magic happens. Inside of here is where it's gonna pull the data from our Markdown file. Now we do have to have some sort of tag and that ID. That ID is really, really critical to create a key for all of our information. So what I'm gonna do just to test this out for now is write a div, because if it's just gonna work in a simple tag, then I can really layer upon layer more and more code. So we're almost deconstructing this card to bring in images. I'm gonna say div and then key equals, and we're gonna say the same thing. So we're gonna follow that node down below. So anything we do is gonna have the word node in it. We're gonna map the nodes. So key, oops, I thought I had it copied. I guess I didn't. There we go, node, and then where is our node going? Node ID. So up above is node dot ID. And we have to close our div, and now inside of here, we can lay out all of this information. So now node front matter title is the title of our image. So I'm gonna say in here, let's put curly bracket and say node dot front matter dot title. And let's see when we save this, if it works or if it fails. So far, no error messages. So far, we're looking good. Once again, keeping this really, really clean just to make sure if anything goes wrong, I can fix it. We can always do the design later, but I want to make sure this works first. So let's head over, and lo and behold, I had to stop for a second. It was taking a little bit longer to refresh the page. It had an error message, but then it worked. Not really quite sure what's going on, but notice now it says Golden Gate Bridge down below where I said node.frontmatter.title. So we know that the front matter works. So let's pull the image 01. So we have to use the same style as we used above in our image fluid information. So what I'm going to do is down below, I'm going to say the following: less than symbol, capital IMG, fluid equals, and say node.frontmatter dot capital image 01 on my screen, because I'm just used to using the capital I to match the capital I right here. It's up to you. That's just how I do it. And I'm going to say child image sharp dot fluid. And we will then close it for 1 second just to make sure it works. And then we can come back and bring the alt information in. Save. And just like that, it shows up. That refresh took about 30 seconds. Awesome. So now the picture is working. Golden Gate Bridge is working. And of course we have it fluid. So it shows up right here. Now we can do is we can drop this down and say fluid and say alt. And that alt information is going to be node.frontMatter, making sure I spelled it properly, making it mess it up. And it's image01 alt. And of course, if we save it, we won't see the alt information unless we go into our inspect. So if we inspect the property, what we should see as a result is eventually alt, no people in front of the golden gate. Awesome. The alt showed up, the Gatsby image works, and we have a way to now bring in different Markdown file information to this picture. So that's great, but what I want to do is I want to get this looking like this above. So what I'll lastly do is that I want to then bring in the card design, because what it's going to do is going to map it multiple times. So let's move around some content. Since we know this whole section is working, I'm going to cut this area and bring it up top. Since we can replace the Golden Gate Bridge, let's take that column out. So from call to close call, we don't need this Golden Gate Bridge information any longer because we're mapping it using the Markdown file. I'm going to paste it in and do a little bit of some touch up because it did not bring it in properly in terms of indentation. That's good. Row, div, looking good now. So now what I can do is I can bring in the card body and the columns into this design. Instead of saying div, I'm going to say call LG equals 6. And I'll use close call in this case, because I always make sure that the row is always around the column. So now when we save this file, let's take a look. Again, biggest to smallest always helps. And there it is. And if we go to this, perfect. Now we have the elements in place for our card. I'm kind of rebuilding it slowly but surely using Markdown files. So we have our column going on right here, and now I want to bring in the card body, start bringing the elements into place. So inside of this node is the column, and then after the call, what I'm going to say is card. Open and close like we have below. The image down below, what I'm going to do is then bring in the image right here. And we'll bring it in that direction, and let's just save and take a look. And notice now that it wraps the information around the picture. And of course, Golden Gate Bridge is not inside of that card yet. So what I can do is inside of card title, what I will do is card image and say card dot title. And inside the card title, I'm going to cut and paste the title. And now when I save it, what I get is that card title sitting right here. So no error messages are coming up yet. So what I can do is move card title into the card. But what I also want to do is I want to add a card dot body. And inside the card body is finally my card title. So I have card and close card, image, card body, which actually needs to be indented. And then technically we would indent those as well and do it that way. And then inside the card body is the card title. And if we save it, notice how it's starting to look a lot like the right-hand side. And yet we're not writing any information in here. We just are pulling information from the Markdown file to illustrate the information to match the right-hand side. Now here's the great part about this. I can take out this second column because I want to then utilize the Markdown files in this case. So let me just stop my Gatsby development going on. You can keep it running technically with the Markdown file, but I usually stop while I don't need to have it running in the background. So I'm going to create a second Markdown file inside of my content folder. So I have my content folder and I have Golden Gate Bridge. Now I'm going to do is I'm going to say Muir Woods. And Muir Woods open with Visual Studio Code. And obviously we're going to change this from Golden Gate Bridge to Muir Woods. And from Muir Woods, we're going to change Golden Gate Bridge, making sure it's done properly. I always like to make sure I check the file name. And I don't know why I have two folders open. I must open it for some reason. Source, images, and muirwoods.jpg. And we'll drop it in. And for the sake of just keeping it consistent, no people in Muir Woods. Now when I save this, look how much cleaner my code's going to get. I can take out this column because I don't need it going on right here. And we'll go call to call. Now, even though we have one column technically right here, we have two Markdown files. Let's save and run Gatsby develop. The setup is a little more work to get it going, but the flip side is you can just edit Markdown files and it's gonna work. It actually makes it for a lot faster speed in the long run. It just takes a little bit of time to get it going. Building development server. Come on, maybe so. We should see it change. If I refresh the page, check it out. Now I have Muir Woods and Golden Gate Bridge in two different cards. And if I move it, it all works fluidly. Here's the great part. If ever I want to change the look of both pictures, and we can also do for a little cleanup, we can take out all this extra code. And what I can do is if I want a 3x6 picture or 50%, I can just change one number, save, and what's going to happen is it's going to rebuild. And mine takes a little bit longer to go for some reason. I'm not quite sure what's going on. So I'm just going to stop and restart Gatsby develop. It probably takes a second or two longer, but for some reason it's not rebuilding the thumbnails the way it should. Technology's fun sometimes. So I just know if I rebuild, hit the Gatsby develop, it's going to rerun my thumbnails and give it one more second. Maybe. That waiting is always so long. Refresh the page. Boom, they are big. And boom, they are both the same size. And that's the power of Markdown files, is that once you have it done once, it just replicates itself down below. Now, you're thinking, this is just two, I can just simply copy and paste text. Well, I wanted to show you an example of another project I built based upon this same structure. I also have a website called The Key to Run a Podcast that I also run. If you want to listen to it, you're more than welcome to. That is me right there, hanging out on the top title. And what I did was, all my recent episodes are the same style. I use cards to arrange this information. And here's the best part about this. I now have control how I want to arrange the cards using Markdown files. I used episode numbers to arrange them. I didn't put dates on this design. So let me show you how you can arrange your cards based upon a certain style. And the best way of sorting information is at first going into GraphQL and seeing how it looks into the data. So in GraphQL, if I hit play again, now I have two Markdown files. So what I want to do is I want to sort by a particular amount of information. So if I say sort, I can sort by a certain kind of field. I can use ID, but notice what I also get is front matter. Check this out. This is pretty cool. I can use all these different ways to sort my information. It's just like, I kind of go, wow, check this out. This is so amazing. But what I'm just looking for in this case is I'm going to sort by title. So I'm looking for is front matter title, which happens to be the first one right here. And which order I want to go in, I can say ascending or descending order and hit play. So now if you notice it, the Golden Gate Bridge is first, or if I want to go descending order, now Muir Woods is first. And the great part about this is, if I say front matter title and ascending and hit play, all I have to do is copy this information. So up at the top where it says all markdown remark sort, I can then copy from parenthesis to parenthesis, or open paren to close paren, and grab the sort. And then come back to my code, come down, and look for all markdown remark. Now I have the parentheses, so I actually do have to copy those. I thought I typed them in before, but I didn't. All markdown remark, we're going to copy the whole dang thing. All markdown remark, sort, fields, front matter, title, order, boom, save. It's going to either rebuild or it's not. I'm having rebuild issues for some strange reason. I don't know why. But now Muir Woods, hopefully this is working. Nope, it didn't want to catch. So if I double check the GraphQL, Golden Gate Bridge is first. Not quite sure why it is not refreshing, but we'll just do a simple stop and a start of Gatsby develop. Again, I know it's going to work because GraphQL tells me it's going to work. That's the best part about this. That all I do is I had to copy and paste this information. Building development bundle. One more time. I won't do anything else to my GraphQL. But what should happen, look at that flip. Now my cards are arranged in ascending order based upon the front matter title. Now, as I showed you before, I arranged mine by episode numbers to count up. You can have dates, you could have authors, you can have whatever you want in your information. And also notice what I like about this too, is my code is much easier to read. I have to do a little cleanup and move some spacing in here. There we go. But to me, once I get used to this format, it actually makes it easier and easier to use Markdown files to control my cards of information. And this is more an advanced expert level of how to use cards in conjunction with Markdown files and GraphQL. Whew, this is a lot of work inside of a React Bootstrap framework inside of Gatsby. I almost had it. Inside of Gatsby JS. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Haydn Adams with A Designer Who Codes. Ready to continue becoming a better web designer through code? Check out more of my videos through my channel, A Designer Who Codes. Thanks so much for watching.